Yeah, and it was just a spit in the face to people, as well as subscription. Maybe it's with a friend or something, but the season finale spends way maybe about 20 minutes or so into the episode, maybe earlier than that, and it takes up a huge chunk of the screen of the entire show, such as it was. That they lamely built up here and there with the whole intelligentsia thing and the Hulk King troll. Like Hulk King is this anonymous Reddit style troll who leads a whole bunch of other Reddit style trolls, and they hate women. They're all just unbelievably sexist towards women, and it's the most shallow, pandering bullshit. She-Hulk overall has to be one of the worst TV shows I've ever watched, if not the single worst TV show I've ever watched. Like, I'm really trying to scramble for what could even, what have I watched in all my time? Like, I've watched a lot of stuff, and what have I watched that could even really compare? Sometimes in the earlier episodes, I was kind of fascinated with how bad it was. Like, how does this huge corporation that invests so much money into their shows and movies, how do they get these professionals who are so incompetent? You know, there's been a lot of videos, except in regards to the finale. Jen is such a huge hypocrite. The show writers are such huge hypocrites, and they don't care. I kind of hypothesize as to what's really going on with their thinking behind certain decisions, like their decision to, like, Jen full on multiple occasions is sexualizing Daredevil Matt Murdock, and it's not even it's not even really contestable in just in terms of her comments that's what's going on. But also the show multiple times waves a finger of disapproval at men who sexualize women. So they're trying to have it both ways. And I have a bit of a hypothesis that it's not that they're lacking self-awareness. It's that maybe they see it, the show writers with their agenda, maybe they see it as something of existential revenge for all the past wrongs, as they perceive it, that media has done to women. So now it's payback. And so in the previous episode, Matt Murdock and Jennifer Walters, they get together, they sleep together, and whatever. And I don't have any objections to that. That's fine. That's all well and good. They're consenting adults. They have the hots for each other. All the adrenaline is rushing from jumping about and all the action and whatnot. And then but in this episode, it's like the plot gets so convoluted, so much shit is happening all at once, where Jen goes to the Abomination compound, and it turns out that Abomination's compound is being used by intelligentsia, and Jennifer is there. She confronts Abomination. She confronts the Hulk King guy, and fucking Titania shows up out of nowhere. Hulk busts in for the ceiling, and he had been missing for the whole show, so he kind of shows up out of nowhere. And Jen is kind of like times out the show. She's like, wait, there's just too much shit going on. Let me fourth wall break. and put a stop to this. So instead of the plot coming to building towards a natural conclusion, she hits a reset button, and it takes such a long time. The whole scene, it could have been kind of cute, you know, where it's like a cute reference, if you know what I mean, where it's like she's crawling out of the thumbnail of the Disney Plus She-Hulk icon, and then she's crawling into the other thumbnail of one of the other Marvel shows, like a behind-the-scenes show, and she's doing that in order to confront the writers, and it harkens back to when she would have done that in some of the She-Hulk comics, and like crawling out of the panel. And so like that in itself, you know, yeah, they could have gotten away with that if as long as it's clever, as long as it makes sense by the end of it. But it doesn't. It's just that it's not clever for the writers to be self-aware that their plot is total fucking nonsense, and has been for the whole fucking show. And for Jennifer to kind of confront like this robot version of Kevin, where it's like she basically gives these terms and demands to the Kevin Feige robot. She's like, I'm not happy with this storyline. I want to change the storyline. And she starts changing certain things. But one of the things that she demands is that Matt Murdock return. And she's like, the way she puts it is like, yeah, bring Matt Murdock back. A woman has needs. You know, she looks at the camera, she looks at us, the audience. She flashes this big grin. She's like, a woman has needs, and it's like, dude, can you imagine the reverse with the reversed sexes? And so it's kind of like a magic lamp situation, where she has this external power beyond the confines of the continuity within the storyline of the show. She can be this external puppet master, as though she herself is like kind of like a writer above the writers of the show, dictating the course of where it goes. So when she comes back again into the show, and everything's conveniently wrapped up like she wanted it to be, and Daredevil plops in from the sky, and it's meant to be comedic, right? Daredevil pops in from the sky in broad daylight from fucking nowhere, doing like the superhero landing, and Jen goes to him. They kind of sweet talk a bit, but there's this moment, right? There's this moment. I swear to fuck, Matt Murdock, he has this expression on his face of confusion for a moment, like this look of, where am I and what am I doing here? His consciousness has caught up to what the plot wants of him, which is, I'm here to see if you need any help. But just prior to when he says that, I swear to fuck, he has this look of confusion, right? And then it's like she later on, he goes back, he meets Jen's family. But I'm kind of curious as to the mechanics of how this plot all works. Did she rob his ability to consent? She basically went outside of the show and talked to a magic wizard, essentially, and demanded changes. And one of the changes she demanded was that Matt Murdock would return. So is Matt Murdock even consenting from that point onwards? Could you imagine if it was the reverse? One of the male superheroes, let's say Thor. Thor is able to fourth wall break, talks to a magic wizard who can reset the plot for him, and he's like, and also bring Jane back, but not in a kind of a loving way, not in a caring, loving way, because he cares about Jane, but he's like, yeah, bring Jane back. A man has needs, and like flashes a grin. Like, could you fucking imagine? Could you imagine? Yeah, it's the same people writing this stuff would be horrified by that kind of thing. Like, well and truly horrified. Awful show. Like, consistently so fucking terrible. So it's, yeah, I remember trying to convince myself to keep going, because I've watched everything MCU so far. The only thing I haven't watched of the MCU so far is the I Am Groot series. That's the only thing I've not watched. I've watched the What If series. I've watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. I've watched all that stuff. All the movies. But I really, yeah, I was kind of fascinated with how bad. Oh God, I was kind of fascinated with how bad it is. It's like truly terrible. But it's so boring. It's so boring. So that, oh shit, there's way too much shit going on here. I was fascinated. I need to find that regen. Yeah, there she is. Okay. I was fascinated initially with how bad it is. But fascination quickly gave way to just total boredom. I think it was episode 4 where that had that character that was what was her name? The character that was loud and annoying, and the humor was meant to be that she's loud and annoying. Cheyenne or something, and she introduces herself multiple times with like, "My name's Cheyenne with 2 N's and a Y, and the Y isn't where you think." It's just awful. It's so awful. It's not funny. The jokes, well, I mean, the humor is so subjective, but it's like, but at the same time, there are objective things that you can say about how certain things are written. Like you have setup and payoff and that kind of thing, but there's no depth to anything. Every single character, my controller is playing up. Every single character is a fucking shallow caricature. They really, really are. Particularly the sexist lawyer. Like, every single time that guy shows up, it's to say something like mind-bogglingly sexist. He's sexist strawman. It's the only reason he exists. Every single time he shows up, that's all he's there to do. There's no depth to him. But there's no depth to any of the characters. Like any of the side characters, there's just fucking nothing there. Like, I was curious about what people had to say about the show. Like, there was that guy. There was that. There was this one YouTuber. Like, there was a couple of people that have been defending the show. Media is subjective. There are going to be people who like the show despite its many obvious flaws. Like, I would argue that it objectively, that it's quite awful objectively, or at least close to objectively terrible, because they can't write court scenes, they can't develop a plot that makes sense, and they don't care. Like, it's very readily apparent by the end of the show. They don't give a fuck that it doesn't make any fucking sense. Why is Wong breaking Abomination out of prison? He says it was to prove himself in a fight. Why Abomination in particular? It's never explained. It's never explained in a way that actually would make sense to any of the characters. Abomination doesn't have to go along with it. He could just punch Wong in the face. He doesn't have to go along with it. But that's kind of stuff that's all been pointed out, really. But oh man, yeah, I've lost my train of thought. There was this one guy in particular on YouTube that was sticking up for She-Hulk, and one of the things he says he loved this male character because he was trying to counter the argument that the show hates men. The show fucking obviously hates men, right? For the show. So so this guy is trying to counter argue that the show doesn't hate men, and he brings up one different sort of positive male characters, and he says he loved this particular character, and I only could figure out what that character's name is by looking it up, and not offhand, just by looking it up, even though I've watched every episode. And I know now that character's name is Pug. Pug has had maybe 3-4 lines of dialogue the entire show. How can anybody love that character? Like, love is a very strong fucking word. So there is something strange going on. Like, it's partially a subjective difference of opinion, but there is also a heavy element of kind of ideological us versus them. People feel the need to stick up for the show for ideological reasons, and in that particular video, it was very apparent, because he's saying that people who backlash against the show, or like he's saying they're like toxic and man babies and blah blah blah, like all these kind of shallow ad hom attacks that he's saying. And it's like, okay, so you're sticking up for the show for shallow ideological reasons, rather than any actual real merits of the show that can be pointed to. Yeah, there's a scene in particular that I think that gives away the message, and by the message I mean like the modern day woke message that is in quite a lot of major properties today. And by woke, what I mean is pushing identity ideology, making identity and identity-related politics this hugely important subject. So, and that's the message. And you have things that are consistent with the message throughout a lot of popular entertainment, and it is very, very apparent for all of She-Hulk from the very first episode, from that scene that everybody points out of Jen's horrible, self-centered, narcissistic, awful ranter cousin. I deal with my anger infinitely more than you. It's like, get over yourself, fuck me. And another defense of the show that I've seen is people say, well, that's there for it to eat a little bit of humble pie later on. It's there for it to have some character growth. And except that everything in the show revolves around reinforcing Jen's point of view. Like, nearly every single man that she meets is horrible. The ones that aren't horrible are fucking shallow and have 3, maybe 4 lines of dialogue, and they exist for no reason other than to be supportive. Like, Pug has no character. What's his character? He doesn't fucking have one. He's just there to be told what to do by the women in the cast, and to do like the click, click, click thing, right? In that one scene, I think it was episode 8, he does click, 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 click thing. So it's like, I don't know. It's awful. It's awful. Every character is so shallow. So I kind of wanted to, yeah, I'm just kind of going off a train of thought, no script or anything. I just wanted to see where my train of thought would take me. The show writers don't know what to put in to the show. I have made several short movies. And I remember one of the very first ones I made. I kind of tricked myself into thinking, hey, this is easy. I've made a 20-minute movie. I could make a feature-length movie if I wanted to. And I tricked myself into thinking it was easy. But the more I watched back what I had edited, the more it was apparent that I had just filled the movie with shots of the guy walking about. He's walking about beautiful countryside and very lonely looking environments, which was all about the theme of the movie. But fuck all is happening. There's no plot or character moving forward in those scenes. You only really need a couple of those like lonely scenes to show the loneliness. You don't need 10 minutes worth of just walking around. But that's a lot of what happens in She-Hulk. Like when she's getting ghosted in that one episode, she's getting ghosted by that guy. What's he called, Jake or Josh or something? She's getting ghosted by that guy, and it takes up so much fucking screen time. She's constantly checking the phone, constantly. Like she's in her room checking the phone. She's in the other room checking her phone. She's in the car checking the phone. She's in the car still checking the phone. And she's in Emil Blonsky's compound, his place, walking all over the fucking place, trying to get a signal. No signal, no signal, no signal. Nothing is happening. Nothing is happening to progress the story at all. And it's similar with the finale. They don't know how to wrap things up. So on and on and on, and nothing's happening, and it's not funny, and they don't know how to fill the screen time, and they don't know how to develop plots. They don't know how to develop She-Hulk's character, because she doesn't really eat a humble pie by the end. There was a kind of maybe just a tinge that they could have went that direction, because she does lose her temper. They show the sex tape and she loses her temper, but there's no real consequences for any of it. We're kind of just rushed through. Like, she's in a prison cell, but then she's let out on bail. She's let out on bail on the condition that she doesn't turn into She-Hulk. But then she breaks the fourth wall and talks to a magical wizard that makes everything all right. And then Emil goes back to prison because he broke his probation by turning into Abomination. She-Hulk is in full view of all the cops that have showed up to arrest intelligentsia. She's She-Hulk. She's in their She-Hulk form. She's not arrested, even though it was her bail condition that she shouldn't turn into She-Hulk. There's no consequences. Nothing makes sense. Nothing matters. And that's consistently driven home throughout the show. That the characters, the plot, nothing matters. None of it matters. The writers don't care about any of it making sense. And they kind of wash their hands of it by saying, oh, it's a comedy, it's a comedy. It's just a light-hearted comedy show. But it's not even a funny show. Plus, it does tie in to other MCU stuff. Plus, it can still have dramatic weight to it. And so they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because they do attempt dramatic weight. They just don't know how to do it. They just don't know how to fucking do it. Possibly the single worst television show I've ever watched. And it does hit men. They do hit men. The writers like generalize and straw man men like fucking crazy. Like fucking crazy. In the She-Hulk comics, Jennifer's first foes were mobsters. In this show, her foes are Reddit trolls. It's pathetic. And they're so threatened. They're so threatened by all the YouTubers who get millions of views eloquently, great editing, great scripts, going through it bit by bit, millions of views from people from all sorts of backgrounds. And you see these fucking people stick up for the show, and they go for these really quite humanizing generalizations of people, like they're incels. People who don't like She-Hulk are incels, or the worst of all, the comments are like, if you don't like the She-Hulk show, the She-Hulk show is talking about you, because they strawman people, and it's like that is so shallow. All you're doing when you say shit like that is you're giving away to everybody with any kind of brain, any kind of thinking for any longer than 5 seconds. Anyone who's not a complete and utter fanboy who can think about this shit for more than 5 seconds can see that your point of view is just so shallow, and it's pretty dehumanizing, and you just need to get over yourself. You're not a virtuous person because you happen to like a corporate product that other people don't like. I'm afraid that being a good person requires a bit more effort than that, and it's got nothing to do with what shows people like or don't like. They would love it if that were the case. They would love it if that black and white fantasy that we've been getting sold for years. This black and white fantasy, by the way. Gamergate was right about everything. We've been sold this black and white fantasy for fucking years, and they would love it to be true because it would make things so much easier on them. But unfortunately, humanity and the world around us is so much more nuanced than what their shitty, tiny worldview is able to account for. But you can go on and on and on about the flaws of She-Hulk without going into the message. You can go on and on. It's terrible, pretty objectively. It does have its fans, so there is always a subjective element to this stuff. But I would argue that it's pretty close to objectively just fucking unforgivably terrible. They should fire the whole writing staff. They really should. I was patient enough to watch the entire fucking show. The finale spat in my fucking face because nothing fucking matters. They can just reset the plot because they don't know how to wrap things up. They don't know how to wrap up the blood subplot of the intelligentsia trying to get She-Hulk's blood. Doesn't matter. It's just been reset. It doesn't matter. It's fucking so shit. I could go on and on. I think I've went on enough. So I might go back to I will go back to my Pathologic 2 playthrough. I think it's a bit tricky with my mic on my PC. I can't quite get the microphone to extend all the way to where I needed to extend to because I play on this big TV screen. I don't sit close to the TV screen. The furniture situation. Plus, I'm not sure of the microphone quality. I don't know if I need to buy a new mic or maybe I just need to buy a mic lead extender. But I will get back to my Pathologic 2 playthrough very, very soon. This has been Chillin' with Caned. No, not Caned. Kane. Chillin' with Kane. Okay. Bye.